Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee is facing some tough competition here in South Carolina as he tries to rally support from evangelicals. Fred Thompson is putting up a fight for those votes, which could ultimately make up about a third of all votes cast in the primary. Mike Huckabee joins us now from Sun City, South Carolina. Governor, it's good to see you. Of course, the big news of the day is President Bush is going to be outlining his economic stimulus package. If you were president, what would you be doing right now for a short-term economic stimulus?
Well, the first thing I'd do is make those tax cuts permanent. I'd make sure that we didn't raise any taxes and, in fact, try to cut rates on both corporate income tax and individual income tax. Right now, the last thing we need is to take more money from people because consumer confidence is low. People have less money because of high fuel prices, because of housing issues and health care issues. If you take more money from them, you only further weaken the economy.
Would you be open to the idea of rebates?
I think that, would certainly be something I'd put on the table. I'd sit down with members of Congress, talk to the Democrats in Congress to see what are they willing to do. We want to be careful not to go into what I call a major government bailout, because then it becomes an issue of going further into debt. I think the second thing that the President needs to do is to really look at some serious spending cuts. It's not enough just to cut taxes. You've got to cut the spending that goes along with it. We're already $9 trillion into debt. The federal government is not really a good example for American consumers who really have a debt issue right now, because the federal government is the worst offender of all when it comes to spending money it doesn't have.
Governor, there were a couple of interesting moments that you had on the campaign trail yesterday, one of which I want to play for you now. You were talking about the idea of abortion and gay marriage and perhaps enshrining bans against both in the Constitution. Let's take a listen to how you phrased that particular issue.
But I believe it's a lot easier to change the Constitution than it would be to change the word of the living God. And that's what we need to do, is to amend the Constitution so it's in God's standards rather than try to change God's standards so it lines up with some contemporary view of how we treat each other and how we treat the family.
Governor, that statement raised eyebrows even among some evangelicals that I was talking to, who thought, maybe that's getting a little too close to the line between church and state for a lot of voters across America, and might prove to be a problem for you in a general election. What do you say?
Well, I don't think so. There's two issues that I've been very outspoken on. Both are issues that are standard things that conservatives believe. One has been in the Republican Party platform since 1980, and that's a human life amendment. I'm one of the few Republican candidates who actually support our party platform on that. The second one is an affirmation of traditional marriage. That's the only areas in which I personally believe we ought to amend the Constitution right now. But I do believe we should, because I think we've got to settle this issue and not have 50 states running around trying to decide what's right and what's wrong in relationship to the sanctity of human life and dignity of worth of people, as well as to define what marriage and family mean.
But Governor, it was the way that you phrased it, to say it's easier to bring the Constitution in line with the Word of God. Do you believe that the Constitution is a secular document?
Well, it is a secular document, John. I probably said it a little more awkwardly than I have in the past. It's consistent with what I've said. And what I've essentially tried to make clear is that the Constitution, the genius and the brilliance of it was that it was intended to be amended. That's why African Americans are considered people, because we amended the Constitution as we needed to make sure that we ended slavery. We amended the Constitution so women could vote. There were a lot of amendments, including the first one, which gives me the right to worship, or you the right to speak out and have free speech. The Second Amendment, which gives us the right to bear arms. Those are all changes to the original Constitution. My point was that the Constitution was a document. It's a living, breathing document written in order that it could be changed. The Scriptures, however, were not written so that we would change them to adapt them to ever-changing cultural norms.
Right, but I think that the point here, though, is that should the Scriptures be separate from the Constitution? Is the Constitution a purely secular document?
Well, they are separate, but I think you're missing my point, John. I'm just simply saying that marriage has always meant, whether in the Constitution or in our basic law, but certainly in our Judeo-Christian understanding of family, marriage has always meant one thing. Life is something that we always treasure. It goes back to the Declaration of Independence, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all of us are created equal. Now, if we really believe that, as our founding fathers stated, then we would understand that no one person is more equal than another. Therefore, there is no such thing as a life unworthy to be lived because somebody has deemed it less than equal to another life. That's the point in which I think it is quite consistent with the Declaration of Independence and subsequently the Constitution.
All right, Governor Huckabee joining us this morning. Governor, thanks very much. Good luck in the primary tomorrow.
Thank you a lot, John. Good to be back with you.